The planet Virga was a wild and dangerous place. Once a beautiful world, it had been ravaged by wars, storms, and creatures far beyond what most humans could imagine. Yet, a small human colony had managed to survive, carving a life out of the harsh wilderness. Among the settlers were many brave souls, but none as unique as Taya, an Apache woman who had led her people to thrive on this strange world. Evan Harper was not one of them. He was an outsider, a former military officer who had left the battles behind to explore the galaxy and help where he could. His travels had brought him to Virga, and as usual he had offered his services to any settlement that might need them. Evan was tall and built for survival. His military experience had turned him into a seasoned navigator and fighter, skills he had once used to serve his country, but now he used them to help civilians on the fringes of the galaxy. He found the work rewarding but never quite fulfilling. After all, he had seen too much death, too much destruction. He didn't believe in grand causes anymore. One day, while making his way through the dense forests of Virga, Evan came across a group of people standing in the clearing, their eyes watching him carefully. They weren't like the other colonists he had met. These were different. They wore handmade clothing and their faces were proud and strong. It didn't take long for Evan to realize that these people were survivors, living in harmony with the land in ways that seemed almost ancient. At the front of the group stood an older woman, tall and firm, her dark hair pulled back in a braid. Her eyes were sharp, yet they held a wisdom that spoke of many years spent understanding the world. She was Taya, the leader of this tribe. "You must be the one they call Evan Harper," Taya said, her voice calm but commanding. Evan nodded, keeping a neutral expression. "That's me. I offer my help wherever it's needed." Taya studied him for a moment, then gestured for him to follow her. "There is something you can help us with. Come, let me explain." As they walked toward a large campfire where the tribe gathered, Taya began to tell him their story. The tribe had been living peacefully for years, relying on their knowledge of the land to survive. But recently their peace had been threatened by a strange alien species known as the Zoroth. The Zoroth were a terrifying race, powerful and relentless. They wanted the resources Virga had in abundance, and they were willing to do anything to take control. Evan listened intently. He had heard rumors of the Zoroth before, but he had never encountered them directly. From Taya's tone, it was clear that the tribe was in grave danger. The tribe had tried to defend itself, but the Zoroth were much stronger and their technology was far beyond what the humans could manage. "We need someone with experience," Taya said. "Someone who can help us fight back." Evan hesitated. He wasn't a soldier anymore, and he had promised himself that he wouldn't get involved in any more wars. But something about the way Taya spoke made him want to help. These weren't just strangers. They were people who had learned to live with the land, to respect it. They weren't just fighting for survival, they were fighting for a way of life. "All right," Evan said after a long pause. "I'll help, but I'll need more information on these Zoroth." Taya smiled as if she had known he would agree. "We'll show you everything." The days that followed were filled with training and preparation. Evan quickly found himself immersed in the daily life of the tribe. He learned about their ways, their skills, and their deep connection to the land. It was all so different from the high-tech worlds he had grown up in, but there was something admirable about how these people lived. They weren't dependent on advanced machines or weapons. They relied on each other and on their knowledge of the world around them. Evan spent hours training with the tribe's warriors, learning how to move through the dense forests without making a sound. He learned how to track animals and how to use the natural resources for survival. He even helped build traps that would stop the Zoroth from advancing any further. But there was one person he found himself spending more time with than anyone else: Sakari. Sakari was Taya's daughter, and she was unlike anyone Evan had ever met. She was beautiful, strong, and fierce, yet there was a kindness in her that made Evan want to protect her. She was also the tribe's best warrior, someone who had been trained from a young age to fight and survive. Her skills were unmatched, and Evan quickly realized that he was in the presence of someone who wasn't just fighting for survival, but for something much bigger. She was fighting to protect a way of life, a way of living in balance with the world. The more Evan trained with her, the more he realized how much he admired her. Sakari was calm and confident, always sure of her actions, yet she never hesitated to help others. She had a deep understanding of Virga's ecosystems, and she often guided him on their missions. using her knowledge of the land to outsmart their enemies. One evening, after a long day of training, they sat by the fire together. The crackling of the flames filled the silence between them. Evan looked at her, unsure of what to say. "I've never met anyone like you," he said, finally breaking the silence. Sakari smiled, her eyes gleaming in the firelight. "I could say the same about you. You fight differently from the other soldiers I've met. You're not driven by rage or duty, but by something else. Maybe you're looking for something more." Evan shifted uncomfortably. He wasn't used to talking about his emotions. "I don't know what I'm looking for," he admitted. "I just want to do what's right. I've seen too much destruction in my life to know what's worth fighting for anymore." Sakari's smile faded, and she looked at him with an understanding that made his heart ache. "You're not the only one who's lost something, Evan. We all have. But we still fight for what matters. For our people. For the land." There was a long pause, and then Taya appeared from the shadows, her voice breaking the moment. "I heard you want a wife. My daughter Sakari is perfect for you." Evan looked at Taya in shock, his face reddening. "What?" Taya chuckled softly. "I've watched you both. You make a good team, and you're both strong. It's clear you could help each other. Maybe it's time you start thinking of more than just survival." Sakari, too, looked surprised by her mother's sudden statement, but there was a glint in her eyes, a hint of amusement. "I'm not ready for anything like that," Evan said quickly, standing up. "I'm just here to help with the Zoroth." Taya simply nodded, her expression unreadable. "I understand. But the heart has its own way of deciding these things." The days that followed Taya's unexpected comment passed quickly, and Evan couldn't shake the thought of Sakari from his mind. He had agreed to help the tribe, to fight against the Zoroth, but something had shifted within him. There was a growing sense that his connection with Sakari was about more than just survival. He was drawn to her strength, her wisdom, and the way she made him feel alive again after years of fighting battles without purpose. But he wasn't ready to face those feelings. Not yet. The danger from the Zoroth was too real, and there was no time for distractions. Still, as they trained together each day, he couldn't ignore the bond that was forming between them. Sakari seemed to sense it too. She didn't press him, but every word she spoke, every action she took, left a deeper mark on Evan's heart. They made an excellent team. While Evan used his military training to plan their attacks, Sakari brought her knowledge of the land into their strategies. She knew how to track the Zoroth, how to use the terrain to their advantage, and how to stay one step ahead. One evening, as they prepared for a major battle with the Zoroth, the tension in the air was thick. The tribe's warriors were ready, but the stakes had never been higher. The Zoroth had gathered a large force, and this time, they were coming for the tribe's very heart, their sacred land. Evan stood on a ridge overlooking the valley, his eyes scanning the horizon. The sun was setting, casting long shadows over the landscape. Sakari joined him, her presence calm and steady as always. "We've fought before," Evan said, his voice low. "But this feels different." Sakari nodded. "This is the Zoroth's last push. If we don't stop them now, they will come back stronger, with more of their machines. We can't let them take this land, not now, not ever." Evan looked at her, a sense of admiration swelling in his chest. "You're right. I didn't understand before, but now I see. This land isn't just dirt and trees to you. It's your home, your people." "It's all we have left," Sakari said, her gaze hardening. "But it's not just about the land. It's about our way of life. We protect what's ours, no matter the cost." Evan nodded, feeling a shift in his heart. He had been running from his past, from the horrors of war, but in this moment he realized that he wasn't running anymore. He was fighting for something worth protecting. Taya appeared beside them, her face lined with determination. "The time is now. We strike tonight." The plan was simple but dangerous. They would use the element of surprise to their advantage, striking the Zoroth forces under the cover of darkness. Evan had no doubt the Zoroth would be ready for them, but he believed in their strategy. And more than that, he believed in the people he had come to care for. The battle begins as the night fell. The tribe moved out in small groups, blending into the shadows. Evan and Sakari were at the forefront of their team, moving quickly through the thick forest. The only sounds were the soft rustle of leaves underfoot and the distant calls of wildlife. Evan's heart raced, but his mind was sharp. He had fought in many battles, but this one felt different. He wasn't just fighting for survival, he was fighting for a future. They reached the Zoroth camp just before dawn, hidden in a thick mist. The alien machines and warriors were scattered around the camp, unaware of the humans closing in. Evan's team set up their traps, and soon, the Zoroth were caught in a series of explosive surprises. The aliens fought back fiercely, their weapons more advanced than anything the humans had, but they were not prepared for the guerrilla tactics the tribe had mastered over the years. The Zoroth had underestimated the humans. As the battle raged on, Evan found himself alongside Sakari, her sword flashing in the dim light. She moved with grace, every strike calculated, every move decisive. There was a fierceness to her that Evan admired, a determination that reminded him of why he had come to this planet in the first place, to fight for something greater than himself. Sakari, Evan called, dodging an alien weapon blast. We need to flank them from the east. Sakari nodded, her eyes focused on the task at hand. Without another word, she moved swiftly, leading their team to the flank. The Zoroth were beginning to realize they were being outmaneuvered, but it was too late. The humans had them surrounded. A sudden twist, just as victory seemed within reach, the ground shook violently. A massive Zoroth war machine, far larger than anything Evan had seen, emerged from the forest, its dark silhouette cutting through the mist. The machine was armed with powerful energy weapons, capable of wiping out entire groups of fighters with a single blast. Evan's heart sank. This wasn't just a battle anymore. This was a war, and the Zoroth had brought their strongest weapon to the field. Fall back, Evan shouted. Fall back to the trees. We need to regroup. But the Zoroth war machine wasn't giving them a chance. It began firing at the tribe's position, sending blasts of energy that tore through the forest. Trees exploded into splinters and the ground shook with each strike. Sakari stood her ground, eyes locked on the war machine. We can't retreat now. Not after everything we've fought for. Evan knew she was right. They couldn't let the Zoroth win. They had to find a way to destroy that machine before it wiped them out. Do you have a plan? Evan asked, moving beside her. Sakari's face was grim, but there was a fire in her eyes. We do, but it's risky, she explained quickly. The Zoroth war machine was heavily armored, but there was a weak point. A small opening in the machine's back, where the energy core was located. If they could get close enough, they could plant explosives there and take the machine down. It was a dangerous mission, one that would likely cost them their lives. But Evan knew there was no choice. He and Sakari exchanged a brief look, and without another word they charged toward the machine, dodging blasts as they ran. The air was thick with smoke and the sound of war. Evan's heart pounded in his chest as they made their way to the back of the machine, weaving through trees and rocks. They reached the machine's blind spot, and Evan quickly set the explosives. Sakari stood guard, her eyes scanning for any sign of danger. She was a warrior, strong and unyielding, but Evan could see the fear in her eyes. This wasn't just a fight for survival, it was a fight for everything they held dear. With the explosives set, they began to retreat, but the Zoroth spotted them just in time. The machine turned, firing a blast that barely missed Evan. He stumbled, but Sakari caught him, pulling him to safety just as the ground beneath them exploded. The explosion rocked the entire valley. The war machine was gone, reduced to nothing but rubble. The aftermath: when the dust settled, the remaining Zoroth forces were in retreat. The humans had won. Against all odds, they had taken down the Zoroth and saved their land. The tribe's warriors cheered, their voices ringing through the air. But Evan didn't join in. His mind was still on Sakari. She had saved him more than once, and now they had won together. He turned to her, his heart full of gratitude. "You're incredible," he said softly, his voice filled with admiration. Sakari smiled, a small, tired smile. But it was enough. We did it together. Evan's heart skipped a beat. He didn't know what the future held, but in that moment he knew one thing for sure. He was no longer running. He had found a purpose here, and it was something worth fighting for. Taya walked over, her face proud. "You've proven yourself, Evan Harper. You've earned our respect," and Sakari's heart. Evan looked at Taya, his expression softening. "I think I've already earned something much more important. A future."